Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Owner's Box After Dark. I am your host, Mark Farinella, the former assistant sports editor of the Sun Chronicle, former sports editor, former every other job they had there, and currently now in my, 7th year of being a local broadcaster and talking about high school sports and announcing them on local cable stations, and it's a wonderful, wonderful job. And I know you haven't seen much of me lately. It is Monday, November 4th, 2024, the day before the presidential election. And that's why I'm here, because I've been pretty busy. I haven't had time to do one of these, as you've known. It's been months. I think it's been since, oh my goodness, I can't even remember when, since I did my last one. But the plans are there to do more. I just got into a little bit of a routine, and all sorts of things were happening, so I couldn't get to doing as many of these as I'd like, neither this version nor the audio version, which is available on all of your most popular broadcasting and podcasting platforms. Okay, it's a nice night here on the shores of Fulton Pond in Mansfield, Massachusetts. We, of course, are in the palatial confines of Fulton Pond Studios, where I do all my podcasts, almost all of them. Occasionally I take it out on the road. And I couldn't let this election season go by without getting my 2 cents in. But also, I figure it's very important that I update those of you who have watched these in the past and give you a little bit of an idea why there hasn't been a steady flow of these audio or video podcasts. So let me first get into that topic, and we will take it from there and then get into the meatier stuff later. You'll notice I'm wearing a hat, and it almost matches. It's a little darker than the color of my shirt. And it's not just because it's swag, not just because it's advertising my podcasts and all that. I do love them for that. But it's a necessity for me these days. For the second time in my life, I was diagnosed with a minor form of skin cancer. This one may have been a little worse than the last one. The last one was a basal cell carcinoma, which was on the top of my head way out back. And it was removed and all seemed well. But more recently, I had something develop a little bit closer to the front, which was it was a little bit worse, apparently. And it was worse than I thought it was when I finally got in to see a dermatologist. It's not easy to get in to see dermatologists these days. I mean, I have one that I regularly see here in my area, affiliated with Mass General Brigham, which is obviously one of the finest hospital systems in the Northeast, if not the nation. And it's hard to get in. And so I kind of tried. I had a regular appointment, which is still scheduled for January, but I couldn't wait any longer. This thing up here was becoming kind of disgusting. So I finally got them to send me to another one, and once they did, the first examination was said, oh yeah, we better take care of that. And so they sent me to the same doctor in Norwood, Massachusetts that I went to the last time. And his name's Dr. David Lee, and he's excellent. Does a great job. He works out of this office area that's all set up for this, and he's affiliated with most of the major hospitals in the area anyway. So, yeah, he took one look at it and he said, oh. I said, no. And I'd already shaved some of the area away from it up there so that you could get to it a little bit. He says, we're going to take a couple of little samples all over the place up there and see what we've got. And I think he took a lot. And then when he had to come back and actually do a lot of cutting up there, he ended up having to do a couple of skin grafts, take some healthier skin from a few places and kind of put it in the area that was taken out. So I think he said it was bordering on squamous. Is that the word? I'm not actually up on it. But he says he feels that it's good. I've had a follow-up appointment since the removal, which was about, I would say, a month ago. And I have to bandage it every day. In fact, all right, I'll give you guys a look. You're not going to see the wound itself. You're just going to see the bandaged area. Ta-da! Yep, there it is. Especially with right around what little hair I had left. Well, I still actually have a pretty good head of hair for my age. Anyway, biggest problem is I have to clean that and replace the bandage every day. And I'm running out of the bandages they gave me when the surgery was performed, so I'm going to have to start using larger ones. Every time I take the bandage off, I basically take more hair away from that area, and it's painful when it comes yanked out like that. And, I know. But, I want to preserve as much hair as I can. I mean, look, I'm 70 years old now, and I want to still keep as much hair as I have there. I mean, I got a good bald spot working on the back right now, but, I mean, I can still fool some people. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this tomorrow on Election Day, I'm going to take myself over to the woman who cuts my hair, and you see the advertisement for her at the end of the credits. Her name's Paula Ferrara. She works out of the head to toe, I think it is. I forgot what it is, but it's in Foxborough. You'll see it's on the credits. You read the credits, you'll see it. And I've told her, I want you to cut basically down to the bone. I'm not going to go ball. I'm not going to go total cue ball. No, that's not for me. I've always said, as long as I have hair, I'm going to maintain as much of it as I can. I don't want to. First of all, I don't think a lot of white guys look good with their hair, with their heads bald. We just don't. My head is shaped like an anvil. I mean, it just wouldn't look right. I don't think it would look good on me. So I'm going to have her trim everything down a lot, especially in that area that has to be bandaged. And we're going to keep it kind of even so I don't have like hair flopping all over the place into the area where the wound is, because that has to heal. So she'll give me the closest haircut I've had since I was in 3rd grade. And that was a lot of years ago, folks. A lot of years ago, folks. So we'll do that. And then once this thing heals, then gradually, hopefully, whatever hair I have remaining at that time will start to grow back, and we'll cover the area more uniformly. And then we can trim it as going. And I figure in about 6 to 8 months, my hair will look kind of normal again. At least I hope it will. So that will be that. And it'll be interesting. I'm sure I'll shock some people. I got to keep the hat on all the time anyway. I had to go to a funeral the other day, and I'll talk about that briefly in the next segment. That, fortunately, at this point, I didn't want to walk in there with the giant bandage on, so I took it off, and I was able to comb over enough of my hair so that it looked natural and it covered up the spot and you couldn't see it. And with a lot of hairspray, it stayed in. Kind of like our former president. I'll get into that later, okay? But yeah, I don't want to have to do that going forward. I mean, I just like rolling out of bed in the morning and getting on with business. I'm on television, as you know, but it's local cable. I don't have to be on the air. And even say, like, we go into December and when the folks over at Foxborough Cable Access decide that they do want to point a camera in my direction, as they do from time to time, I will have a hat on. And I'll probably look like an idiot, but it'll be one of these hats that sells the podcast. So I got plenty of them. I got them made up specifically for that. Although I've got tons of baseball caps in the house. Probably should throw out some of them by now. But yeah, we'll get through it. I mean, thank God it's not anything worse. But I'm glad I was finally able to get in to see somebody because, and I asked the doctor too while I was there. I said, look, I own a convertible, and I have had convertibles pretty much since, I want to say, close to 2010 till the present. And I'm wondering, have I done damage to my skin because of that? I mean, I had a full head of hair, but I also always wore caps in the convertible because I didn't want my hair flopping around in my face. So he said, you know what? This kind of damage may have happened to me when I was 4, 5, 6 years old. And I thought about that. He goes, because the point being is that, a lot of times back then, people didn't really understand the possible damage of skin cancer for sun exposure. And it's gotten worse over the years anyway, with kind of the depletion of the ozone layer at times, or maybe because there's more fluorocarbons in the air or something like that. There's all sorts of reasons why it's more intense now than it used to be. And so perhaps even one time, totally innocently, if I was down the beach, like either in Dennisport or Newport, where my folks used to go, and I'd be out there splashing around in the ocean with nary a care in the world because I was still in diapers, that could have been causing damage then that took 65, 68 more years to finally manifest itself. So I don't blame anybody. It's not serious. I mean, there are people with far worse conditions that would, if it were melanoma, I'd be in deep caca, as they say. So fortunately, all's been taken care of. We hope to move on. I'm not going to sell my convertibles, my convertible singular, although the SUV also has a very large sunroof that I open from time to time. But I always wear the hats in the car. In fact, I got one hat specifically for each car. So we'll get through it. What can you do? I'm lucky to be here now as it is, when you get down to it. I'm in that range of age now where now I'm flipping coins every day when I wake up. Okay. That's it for the first segment, and I think I'll just take a quick break because I want to break this up a little bit more. And when I come back, I will talk about some of the things I've been doing lately, and I'll save the really juicy stuff for last, okay? We'll take a quick break.
It's a perfect killer. It's a perfect killer. It's a perfect killer.
卵ポケットに卵を落とそう。
It's a perfect killer.
Hello again, and welcome back to the Owner's Box After Dark. I believe this is episode 58. I have a hard time keeping up with these things these days, and so, in fact, I just set up the template for making this episode on my computer in the other room, and I looked and I said, oh my God, 58 of them? And so hopefully I got it right, and that's what it is, and we will go on. Now, the mood candle for tonight is, as always, the Sicilian Lemon from Yankee Candle. It smells great, and this house needs to smell a little bit better these days. Do you know that Ozempic has a few interesting side effects? And yeah, I'm not taking it strictly for the weight loss potential. I have lost a few pounds, which is nice. Not a lot, but yeah, it's been diagnosed for me because I am a diabetic, and my other doctor believes that it's better for me to take this, and it'll have better effects in controlling my sugar. And to tell you the truth, it has. I mean, my blood sugar numbers have been excellent lately. And that's why I can drink this Dairy Queen chocolate shake right now, because it's, my numbers were very good when I woke up this morning. In fact, 99. That's good. So, but yeah, Ozempic tends to move the bowels a little bit faster. Again, like our former president. Except I don't do it in my pants. I'll get into that later. So, yeah, what was I going to talk about? I had to go to a funeral. And I'm going to get a little sad for a couple of minutes here, but I just want you to know that it's sadness with joy attached, because there are people in your life that you work with or that you get to know as friends. Sometimes they're mutually exclusive of each other, but in this case, it wasn't. My friend Carlo Emilio from the Springfield newspapers, whom I met when I first became a Patriots beat writer in 1977. He passed last week at the age of 88. He had a good life. His beloved wife, Midgie, had passed in April this year, which, you know, how often do you see stories where people who are deeply in love with each other die within days, weeks, or months of each other after they've lived a long and fruitful life together? Well, that's what happened with Carlo. He didn't last much longer than Midgie, and, you know, I hope they are together, if there is an afterlife. Back in 77, when I first broke onto the beat, I was this cocky little punk from Attleboro, smallest paper covering the Patriots. And not a lot of the veteran writers really kind of thought there was any need to befriend me at the time, but the first guy, seriously, one of the two first guys to reach out to me and offer the hand of friendship, Carlo Emilio was one. The other one was Pete Farley of the Brockton Enterprise. He was the sports editor and the beat writer at the time. And as you know, I worked with his son, Glenn, for many years on the Patriots beat, and then for 5 years doing King Philip Regional High School football and other sports on North TV. So, and he was the first one to let me know that he had heard of Carlo's passing. So, Carlo was an American original. You know, he wasn't. I don't believe he went to college. He went right into the U.S. Navy after he graduated from Agawam High School in 1954, the year I was born. And then, you know, he met Midgie pretty soon thereafter. They got married, and then he started working at the Springfield papers. And within a couple of years, I think it was 1966 when he first went on the Patriots beat, and that was just 6 years after they were created. So he was one of the true veterans on the beat. And, of course, he'd been there then for, 11 years? No, I'm sorry. Take that back. 20. Yeah, no. That would be 11 years. Yeah, 66 to 77. Yeah, okay. I can add. Yeah, he'd been on the beat for a while then. Guys like Ron Hobson of the Patriot Ledger and Dick Sarazulo of the Worcester Telegram and Gazette were there from the very beginning. But, you know, Carlo was one of the true veterans, and he was a good guy. And so he opened up to me and kind of broke down the doors for me a little bit so that finally people would kind of get to accept me a little bit as not just another new guy on the beat, but somebody who had ambition and wanted to cover the team, and soon enough was allowed by my newspaper to go home and away and to cover them most of the time at home in all of their press conferences and everything without, as long as it didn't interfere with the local sports coverage. So that's why I worked 99 hours a week when I was a kid, and well after that. Carlo was one of the funniest guys I ever knew. Could tell a joke with the best of them. Even if it was a really bad joke, he could make it funny. And I'll tell you, we had a blast because out on the road was where, you know, you kind of let your hair down a little bit. And since I was a newcomer to travel, I mean, I stayed at the same hotels. And for a while, we stayed at the team hotels where the Patriots were. But after a while, we had to branch out a little bit because the Patriots stopped flying everybody to games. They made the media fly separately, fly ourselves to games. And we did, but we always would make schedules together, so we'd all end up at the same place. I remember one time in Chicago, and I got to tell this story. It's in the paper. It's not in the paper. It's on my web page, and maybe I shouldn't tell it completely here. I won't use the parts that I cut out before because it is a little kind of, it's a little crazy. Chicago, 1985. I was young and horny. And I was flying out to the game with a young woman who had just started working for Channel 7 as a sports reporter. Her name was Cynthia Tepp. Cynthia Tepp, T-E-P-P. She was from Arizona originally, I believe. And so we just sort of became friends. And so when we got to Chicago that particular day, and I gave her a ride to the airport because I always got rental cars. I gave her a ride to the hotel in downtown where the Patriots were staying and where we were staying. And In those days, they had the keys for the reporters out on a table where we could take them and not getting confused with the players checking in and all that. So we got our tickets, and I said, "Look, Cynthia, I went to school out here. Let's take a walk. Let's go all over the place here, and get the feel of Chicago today." It was a beautiful early fall day. It was like probably, I think it was close to the end of September when the Patriots were playing out there, and of course they played the Bears in the Super Bowl that year at the end of the year, Super Bowl 20. But we didn't know that was going to happen then. But so we had a nice day, and we started walking up Michigan Avenue, which is the main drag in downtown Chicago. And it was a beautiful hotel there, the Drake Hotel. Cynthia and I stopped at the Drake Hotel, but they had open little sidewalk bars available with little seating area. And so as we're walking by, and Cynthia recognized this man first because she, I guess she was more of a broadcasting fan than I was. But then again, remember, I went to Northwestern when a fellow by the name of Jack Brickhouse did the play-by-play for the Cubs on WGN TV. And, of course, I watched both the Cubs and the White Sox while I was out there. And so we walked by, and there's Jack Brickhouse sitting there at one of these little tables with his wife. And Cynthia went up and introduced herself immediately. And then I walked over, and once the conversation started, I said, "Oh yeah, Jack, I used to listen to your broadcasts all the time. I went to Northwestern and all that." And so he and his wife invited us to sit down with them, and it was a fun little afternoon. They bought us the drinks, and we didn't get plastered or anything, but it was just a nice afternoon to chat about baseball and broadcasting. And of course, as I had an interest even then that it was something I kind of wished I could do. Served me better later in life, but so we had a great time, and we spent a long time together that day. Well, at the same time, the guys on the beat noticed that I wasn't around, and I guess somebody had told them that I was out with Cynthia Tepp, so they kind of felt that I, was out to make a conquest or something like that, if that was possible. I'll admit it right here. No, that didn't happen. But we did have a fun time. And I wish I had seen more of him. She didn't last very long in the job in Boston, which was surprising. But Boston's a tough market for anybody in TV. It's not just a young woman coming in from some other place in the country. But the next morning, I get to this kind of tradition that they had in the team hotel. The owner of the Patriots at the time, Billy Sullivan, would always have a pregame breakfast for members of the media. He didn't hate us as much as some did, and as a result, all the veteran reporters and the guys who were traveling with the team would come down to one of those meeting rooms, and they'd have it set up with a breakfast buffet. And Billy also had the habit of usually inviting clergy to these meetings, kind of give a little blessing at the beginning of the breakfast and all that. He just that was his thing, Irish Catholic guy from Boston. He seemed to have a good relationship with a lot of people in clergy across the country. Didn't pray enough for the success of the Patriots, obviously, but so. We go into this meeting, but Billy has not arrived yet, and none of us knew who he was going to bring with him. But so we're sitting at the table. Now Carlo looks at me and he says, he thinks he knows what happened the previous night. He goes, "So Marco," like that, and I can't say what he said, but basically the question was something to the effect of, "Did you sleep with her last night?" And it was out there for everybody to hear. But as he asked that question, coming through the door was Billy Sullivan, and I think his name was John Cardinal Bernardin, the Cardinal, the Archbishop of the Diocese of Chicago, just as Carlo blurted that out. I don't think either of them really picked up on it. Maybe Billy did, I don't know. But nothing was said about that thereafter. I sat down and just sort of shrank into my seat. And the blessings were given and the breakfast was there. And I just looked at Carlo. I said, "Thanks a lot, Carlo." There were other funny moments, not as embarrassing as that one, but Carlo had a great heart, and he was loyal in his friendship to everybody, and I gave him many a ride to stadiums over the years because I would be the guy who'd get the rental car and nobody else wanted to spend the money for them. And we worked together on the beat for a long time. He left the Patriots beat right just around the time that Bill Belichick came in as head coach in 2000. Carlo had enough. His good friend Dick Sarazulo retired at about the same time. Dick passed a few years ago. And so they weren't in on the dynastic era, unfortunately. But Carlo still participated with the committee that I'm on, the Patriots Hall of Fame nomination committee, where we will get together, although we haven't in a few years because everything's been kind of cut and dried. We had the pandemic, and then we had Tom Brady retiring, so who's going to vote as to whether he should be on the ballot. But that's what we would do. We'd get together with about 25 of us, current writers, past writers, broadcasters, team guys, former players, statisticians and stuff. The mysterious Ernie Adams was always on that committee. And we would sit there and chat about the guys that we should put on the ballot. And we'd always pick 3 people that would be on the ballot, and then it would be up for the fans to select the people who would actually go into the Hall of Fame, the one guy who would go in every year. So Carlo did that with us for quite a few years. But then right after the pandemic, he stopped coming. He couldn't make the drive anymore. First of all, he always used to ride with Dick Sarazulo. He would go out to Springfield and pick him up and then bring him out here. But Dick passed, and so that was that. And Carlo did not feel confident in his driving of 2 hours to Foxborough, like he used to do every day back when he was a beat writer. Now he wasn't one of those guys that was stationed, for his newspaper, but lived in Norwood or someplace like that. No, he had to make the drive back and forth to Agawam every day. So I guess Glenn and I both felt that it was inevitable. We weren't going to hear from him, and then we got the news on Monday. So the other thing that I really owe to Carlo was the contest that made very many Sun Chronicle subscribers happy for over 30 years. We called it Beat Fearless. That was my nickname with the newspaper. And every week people would be able to pick their winners from this coming week's NFL games. I would have my selections in at the end of the week, but everybody would get a ballot. There'd be a ballot in the paper. They'd all fill it out, who they thought would win each game, not by points or anything like that, just simple selection. And then they had a chance, if they did better than I did that week, they had a chance to win T-shirts or prizes. And for a while we gave out as a grand prize, we gave out season tickets to the Patriots. Can you believe that? That was back in the day when there were plenty of them, and it only cost about $600 to give somebody a season ticket for a whole year, and then after that it was theirs to renew whether they wanted to or not. And I've still talked to people over recently that told me that they won the championship, they won the season tickets, and they have renewed them ever since, and it was the best thing that ever happened to them because, of course, the Patriots became the dynasty. And but that whole idea came from Carlo Emilio. Carlo was the guy who started it all. His contest beat Carlo, I think first showed up in 1976 or 77, somewhere around there. And we're all a bunch of copycats. We saw what kind of success and popularity it had in Springfield. And so all of us asked Carlo, I said, hey, can we do it too? Can we do our own contests? Well, they had a gold mine over there, and really the Springfield paper should have just said no. Nah, unless you pay for the rights. But no, they had no objections whatsoever. So all over New England, you started seeing contests pop up in all of the papers that covered the Patriots. All over the place. There was a beat this guy or beat that guy, or a humble the humble one in Quincy for Ron Hobson. And so we started Beat Fearless in the paper, and it survived for many, many years. Even after I left briefly and came back, the contest was still going under a different name, and then they gave it back to me as Beat Fearless. And people had lots of fun. And Carlo, that was his idea. Yeah. And I am forever, eternally grateful that he did that, because it provided our readers with a lot of fun. And I still hear from people every day who missed the contest. They loved playing it. They loved beating me. And sometimes it wasn't that easy to do, and sometimes it was very easy to do. So thank you, Carlo. Again, Carlo was 88. He had two children, his son Nicholas and his daughter, I believe it was Joanne, and they were both there. And we chatted with them. I actually arrived at the same time, excuse me, as Ron Hobson of the Patriot Ledger, retired, of course. Kevin Mannix retired from the Boston Herald. They were the Touchdown Twins on WEI on Eddie Andelman's radio show. Lee Montville, the former great columnist for the Boston Globe. Timmy Murphy of the used to be with the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, worked for many years with Dick Sarazulo and obviously with Carlo as in part of the group, and Chris Kennedy, who was with Carlo in the later days of his career at the Springfield Papers. So we all went in together, and we all went through the line together, and it was nice to know that Carlo had spoken well of all of us over the years, and they knew who we were. We didn't have to introduce ourselves. And I'm sad that Carlo's gone, because there aren't that many of us left from that era. I had a great time on that beat. Sometimes it was tough. The early years were a little ragged, but as time passed, and it was like part of my family. And Carlo was a big part of that family, and I will miss him until I pass. I'll be back with the third and final segment of this episode of The Owner's Box After Dark, right after this break. Hello again. Welcome back to The Owner's Box After Dark. Episode 58, being recorded here on Election Eve from the palatial and fairly clean surroundings. I haven't had time to vacuum or anything these days. Here in Fulton Park Studios in Mansfield, Massachusetts. I'm Mark Farinella, the host with the most. And it's time to talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. Or by the time you see this, what may have already happened. Who knows? I'm not going to get deeply into the invective, because it's too late for that. We've had more than a year of battling over this election. In fact, God knows, elections last too long these days. It used to be you didn't even start to talk about an election until maybe the first of the year of the actual calendar year of the election. But now they're just, the second that one president goes into the White House, somebody else is already running and saying that you've already failed in office anyway. Well, we all know what happened this year. It looked like it was going to be a rematch between Donald J. Trump and President Joe Biden. But as we all saw over the many, many months leading up to this moment, that Joe Biden was having a hard time with his stamina. I mean, he is the oldest president we've ever had, and it was starting to show. And maybe you'll remember that terrible debate he had with Trump at the start of this process of the actual presidential campaign, not just the run up to it. And he was lost, and he was weak, and Trump did the smart thing. He just kind of shut up and let Joe look bad which was amazing in my mind because I don't think there's any way on God's green earth normally that Trump can shut up about anything. But the Democrats took notice, and immediately they put Vice President Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. And that's a risky, risky move. And that's probably why they say this election is, or at least has been, super close for much of the last maybe 3 months or so. I don't know if it's going to be that close tomorrow, to be honest. I think that situations have changed and that maybe there's a good reason for optimism for a dyed-in-the-wool liberal like myself. Remember, I'm not a Democrat, although I vote primarily for candidates from the Democratic Party. I have voted for Republicans in local offices, in statewide offices, and yes, even for president. I think since I started voting in 1972, I think I voted for 4 Republican presidential candidates because there just wasn't really a better option on the other side. I'll also come clean right from the top. And you know you've heard me say this before if you've seen any of my podcasts or if you saw them 4 years ago or whatever. I despise Donald Trump. And I have since the 1980s. This isn't a new Johnny-come-lately fashionable hissy fit of mine. When he was trying to get NFL ownership, get a team, and the NFL rejected him because even then people knew he was a blowhard and they knew he didn't have the money that he claimed he had. The NFL rejected him for ownership of the Buffalo Bills. And so he tried to get in on the new league, the USFL, and he got the controlling interest of the New Jersey Generals. And you'll remember that was the team that Doug Flutie got paid millions of undeserved dollars to play for. That was the team that Herschel Walker came out of college early and almost tore the fabric of college sports apart in the process to get paid big Donald Trump bucks. And the whole reason why Trump did this was that he had a plan. The commissioner of the USFL at the time was a fellow by the name, I can't remember his name. He was the owner of the Tampa Bay franchise. And he was ill with terminal cancer. And the league hadn't really taken any steps to address what was going to happen when the inevitable happened. And Trump's one goal at that point was to gain control of the USFL, change it from a springtime league to a fall league competing with the NFL. Not that he felt he could put the NFL out of business because there was no chance of that. But what he wanted to do was to make it uncomfortable enough for the NFL that they would do what the NBA did with the ABA basically and fold franchises into the NFL at some point, including his New Jersey Generals, which he spent tons of money on. So, after a fairly successful start as a springtime league, look, I covered the Boston Breakers, and I loved it. It was fun. They played their games at Boston University when that antiquated little remnant of what Nickerson Field, what used to be Braves Field, where the Boston Braves played before they moved to Milwaukee. They played their games there when there was still a football presence on the BU campus. And it was fun football. There were some names that had come out of the NFL to play for it. And, it just was a different, it wasn't as structured. It wasn't as haughty as the NFL was. It was new. It was fresh. It was fun. And Trump killed that. Once he had a chance to gain control of the USFL, and that's in that last season that they played, and we were going to make the transition to a fall league. Well, obviously that plan collapsed. So he sued the NFL as a monopoly. Claimed that they had made it impossible for them to do business. And he actually won the case, but he only won $3. the punitive damages were $1, and because in the case of that sort they tripled the damages, $3. But the league just folded. Now there is a latter day version of the USFL which has become something else since then anyway, and that has nothing to do with the Trump version. But Trump killed something that was popular and potentially fun. And it was a stepping stone for some players to get into the NFL because they proved under that competition, which wasn't all that bad, that they might be able to play. And so as a result, there are players that made it big in the NFL after having an initial year in the USFL because they got a chance to show something that maybe everybody missed in the draft or in the process of evaluating players. But Trump killed it all. And it was just a selfish money grab by him. And he didn't even get what he wanted out of the lawsuit. He'd never been considered for an NFL franchise. He was courting everybody about the Patriots, even before Robert Kraft got his hands on him. And he's been buddy-buddy with Robert Kraft for a while, although I think that's kind of soured a little bit because of some of Trump's statements that really are anti-Semitic. And Bob Kraft is not big on anti-Semitism, believe me. So, I've hated Donald Trump since 1985, at least. And everything that's happened since then has borne that out. He was a horrible president. He's a philanderer. He has no moral sense whatsoever. And even more recently, he's been found guilty of 34 felony counts of trying to hide the payments he made to Stormy Daniels. Yep. 3 wives. One of which some people think he pushed down a stairway. I can't verify that. Cheated on all 3 of them. And the most recent one, Melania, the mail order whatever from Slovenia, she was cheated on when she had Barron, and Don's hopping up and down on Stormy Daniels with the little mushroom going. And then he tries to pay her off so she'll be quiet. And that's where all those 34 felonies basically come from. He's been found guilty or liable in civil court for sexual assault. He has no understanding of the Constitution, no understanding of law and order. He is obviously racist. He doesn't like any brown people, black, brown, whatever shade. He definitely has a problem with women, especially strong, independent women. He's proud of getting 3 Supreme Court justices on his dole that would upend the most important finding of the last 50 years, which was Roe v. Wade. I mean, reproductive rights for women. You know that a girl born today, has hardly even a tenth of the rights that her mother had. And it's been a process that you knew was going to come. And finally, because we have this strange predilection in this country to suddenly believe that we are somehow anointed by the hand of God, and that we should be embracing Christian nationalism instead of embracing all Americans of all faiths, which was the idea about this country in the first place, to open it up as a refuge, as a respite, rather, from religious persecution. The man's a fraud. He's a grifter. And he's getting senile, big time. And if you haven't listened to his most recent rallies, where have you been? I mean, when he fillets a microphone on stage, when he talks about how big a dick that Arnold Palmer, the golfer, had, when he continually has to bring up a fictional character by the name of Hannibal Lecter, from one of the best movies ever made, Silence of the Lambs. Even Anthony Hopkins, who played that character, has disavowed this guy any connection at all with Donald Trump. And he thinks these are like significant moments. He thinks that if he can say any horseshit he wants up there on that stage, there are billions of Americans. Billions. And I purposely said billions because there are only 340 million of us or something like that right now. That's how Donald Trump inflates all the figures. Remember he had a rally at Madison Square Garden in New York recently, where they had comedians calling the island of Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. That's one way to get the Hispanic vote, huh? Anyway, Trump and his minions claim they had 200,000 people in the building. It doesn't even hold 20,000. There are 19,500 seats inside Madison Square Garden, and most of those, and only a fraction of those aren't seated with regular fans. But what might overflow there might be is usually room that's taken up by technicians and employees and stuff like that. They can't fit 200,000 people in Madison Square Garden. It is a physical impossibility. I personally think that he faked somehow, although I don't know if I'm giving him credit because I don't think the guy's smart enough to do it these days, but somehow I think that assassination attempt in Pennsylvania was a fake. I just don't. I've seen that tape a million times. I could believe in a heartbeat that when he ducked behind this podium, that whichever Secret Service agents were in on this fraud maybe opened up a capsule of fake blood on his ear. And how did they bring him to his feet, hold him out there for the people to see him go, fight, 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 with a little bit of blood dripping down his face? Why weren't they covering him up totally? If there was an active shooter out in the crowd, why are they letting him be a target? Because they knew he wasn't going to get shot. I've never been a conspiracy theorist in my life. I like to think that there's reality involved in most of what happens, but this is one time that this one just really, really sounds fishy to me. And how come we know very little to this day about the kid that was killed with the rifle and who apparently had shot into the crowd? We knew more about Lee Harvey Oswald in 20 minutes after his after his assassination, if indeed he was the assassin, of JFK in 1963, than we will ever know about this kid, because this kid just disappeared into history somewhere. I don't even remember his name. Somehow, things have been buried. And I could see in Donald Trump's warped mind how he feels he could garner votes and sympathy from the addled individuals that follow him. And I know I'm sounding like I hate a bunch of Americans. And yeah, there's about 35, 40 million out there who are just beyond hope and help. But there are also others that can be convinced one way or the other because of whatever circumstances that there are out there right now. All right, prices are high. All right, not everybody has what they want. Well, there was a time when I thought that a lot of Americans weren't all that concerned only about what they could get, but what the nation would get as a whole. But no, I guess that's not the case anymore. You go to a gas station in your Ford F-150 with the multiple gas tanks, and it costs you $120 to fill up. Oh, that's terrible. Why am I paying so much? Well, maybe if you drove a friggin' Prius, like I used to. I don't anymore, of course. They just want what they want. And the one thing that Donald Trump does better than anyone else, although he's gone off the rails lately, is he finds the talking point that will excite a certain element of the country, and he'll just beat it to death. No tax on tips. No tax on Social Security. No tax on this. No on overtime. That's the other one right now. Do you think he's going to follow through? If he becomes president, do you think he's going to follow through with any of them? No, absolutely not. The one thing he does is that when he says something at a rally, that's where it ends. It does not follow after that. He doesn't follow up on anything except whatever he wants, whatever makes him happy, whatever gets him what he wants. And now, I don't think he knows what he wants anymore because his mind is tapioca pudding. But the problem is he'll still get his 60 million votes. I just want to believe that there's still more intelligent, educated, and compassionate Americans out there who will understand that even if Kamala Harris is not your perfect choice as a potential president, whether it's because she's a woman or it's because she was vice president, nobody knows what vice presidents do anyway, or whether it was because she talks funny or laughs too loud or whatever. If there's something you don't like about her, I hope you still understand that she is still the better choice for this country going forward. Otherwise, I see the ruination of America before my life is over. And that's pretty pathetic. I thought I would live a good life. I am living a good life. But I didn't think I would still have to fear what I feared in the 1960s. That someday somebody was going to do something stupid, and the next thing I know, I'd be seeing mushroom clouds rising off in the distance. And I think I went to bed as a 6-year-old, deathly afraid of nuclear war in the 1960s, and for good reason. Trump says he'll stop World War III. Are you kidding me? He'll start it. It won't be with his buddy Putin, but it'll be with somebody else that he'll piss off. And there are a lot of people out there right now who are probably already planning somehow to get the bombs on our shores. I trust Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and a Democratic administration a hell of a lot more to deal with the complex world that we're in instead of an addled old fart who shits his pants every day and has no moral fiber whatsoever. I'm sorry, that sounds harsh. I believe in America. Remember this first part of Godfather? I believe in America. Well, I do. It's the greatest country in the world. It always has been. And it's made its mistakes, plenty of them. We're not saints. In fact, a lot of times we're sinners. I can talk easily. Look at the skin. As Donald Trump would say, the beautiful white skin. Hey, nothing I can do about it. I'm Italian. Maybe that counts for something. I don't know. I'm second-generation American. I would be first-generation American if not for the fact that my dad was born in this country, and he was the first of the Farinella children of that particular family who was born in the United States. Second generation is not too far removed from being something else. But I believe in the ideals of this country that have often gone astray, but are still there in black and white in the Constitution of the United States to guide us back. And if it's not right, we can amend it. I know I have my feelings about the Second Amendment. I think it should be changed. But I won't get into that right now because it's a different issue. The first thing we've got to do is make sure that we have smart people at the top anyway so we can actually discuss these issues as opposed to just making it as if God ordained from on high that every American has to be packing heat. I believe in a compassionate America, and I'm 70 years old. Some of that actually applies to me. When Donald Trump and other Republicans, he says, "Oh, I won't touch it. I won't touch Social Security." And other ones are saying behind his back or in front of his back that, yeah, we got to look at the entitlements. Look, I collect Social Security. It's a help. It's not everything I don't need everything. I'm lucky. But if I lost that, it would be more of a strain. Yeah. I mean, the house is paid for. I'm in good shape there, but a lot of people aren't in that boat. And a lot of people need that assistance. And thank God for the wisdom of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a Democrat, a liberal. No, folks, please, if you haven't voted yet, go to the polls, search your soul. What do you want? Do you want to be led by a huckster? Do you want to be led by somebody that you wouldn't invite in your own house for dinner? Or would you like to be led by someone who has consistently offered a platform and a message of hope and perhaps even returning a little bit more joy to America? I know that's a talking point. Look, this year, for the first time ever, I put a sign out in in front of my house. It's a Harris Walls sign. I had never done that before. The only thing I had ever come closest to doing was I did have a "I'm with her" little magnetic sticker for the back of my car when Hillary Clinton was running for president. I put it out on the line this time. I mean, I thought for sure that the sign would have been vandalized at some point. That's why I put two little lights on either side of it so that at least it would show up in dark and maybe scare a few kids away. Nobody touched it. I have bumper stickers on both cars. They're small, but they're there. Harris Walls. That's how I feel. I think even a few years ago, I thought that Kamala Harris had the potential to become presidential timber. I thought maybe it had taken a bit of a back, kind of like a swing backwards, though, a little bit when she ran in 2020 and then didn't even make it past the first set of primaries. But you know what? She's been in the White House now as vice president for 4 years. Can't say it's without criticism. I mean, this whole issue of the borders are a thing. I mean, maybe there's no question that all of the Democratic Party should have done a better job of trying to fix that mess on the border. And we'll see what happens going forward. But I think she's a smart individual. I think she's a compassionate individual. I'm stumbling on my words now because I'm getting very passionate about this. And I want to give her a chance. I sent my vote in a month ago, right when I could at the beginning of this whole process. I had no qualms whatsoever. I knew which way I was going no matter what. There was no question about RFK or Jill Stein or anybody like that. No, thank you. RFK, for Christ's sakes. My God, if his father knew what was going on. But I voted for Kamala Harris proudly. I want her to be president of the United States. It's about time we had a woman anyway. We should have had one quite a while back because whether you liked her or not, Hillary Clinton was right about every single bit of it. And you know that. I'll get off the soapbox now. Voting is either almost over or it's already over by the time you see this. Probably will be a little bit of a wait before we know what happens, but especially in the case of women voters, I think they might have the biggest reason of all to come out and say, look, we're tired of you Republicans, old white men, you name it, treating us like second-class citizens. We want to get paid the same, and we want to have the right to control what happens with our bodies. I'm on board with that. I always have been. And that's because I love athletes. I love women athletes. And I'm not going to get into the transgender thing because, to tell you the truth, nobody has walked in the shoes of a lot of people who've had to make those decisions. And until you do, you have no right condemning an American for trying to find happiness. Remember, that's what it says. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Women may save us. Women may save this country. And by God, I hope you do. In the meantime, all of you of good conscience, please come to the polls and vote. Okay, off the soapbox. Folks, I want to thank you for joining me here on episode 58. I don't know when the next one will be. I'll try to get one out sooner. I'll have a lot shorter hair by then. Just remember, I'll put it up on the screen. Remember where you can get these podcasts. All of the popular podcasting platforms for the audio version. This one will be on YouTube. Don't miss it. I'll try to link to it. Facebook's been a bit of a prick lately in terms of they're taking things that I put on my blog and claiming that I'm trying to distribute spam, which is absolutely wrong. And I've heard other people are having this problem if they are like a content producer and they want to try to advertise on. So what I'll probably do is I might end up actually putting the actual video on Facebook under my screen name, which of course is Mark Farinella, or Mark M. Farinella on Facebook. But I'll have links on Twitter, and these video podcasts are always available on YouTube, and that's where you can find it. Can't think of anything else. I know I'm missing something that I normally say at the end of the episode, but you know what? It's been a while since I've done it. I'll have to go review a few others. King Philip versus Abington. No, I'm sorry. I knew I was going to do that. Arlington versus King Philip at King Philip football Division II playoffs. The first round, Friday night at MacTass Field in Rentham. 7 o'clock start, live on North TV, I hope. I think it will be. And I'll be there with Del Malloy doing the call. Should be good. KP has won 21 straight games, and I don't see any reason why they can't keep doing that for a while. So, join us for that. Stick around for more podcasts. I'll have some audio versions out. We'll try to get some guests coming up. As always, basketball season is coming. You know how much I love that. Thank you for joining me tonight, and please take to heart some of what I said, and if it was too much, just understand, I'm an old man. God bless you all, and God bless America.